if you work 10 hours more than anybody else, the average in your industry, you'll become an expert in your industry faster than anyone else.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer, ADP. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in. All right. Thank you, listeners, for jumping back into another episode of the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast. I've got my friend and business partner, Drew McWilliams, here with me again today. Thanks for jumping into the episode again, Drew. We have kind of a fun, exciting episode here for you. We're going to dive a little bit into Drew's background in active real estate investing, specifically on the single family side. As most listening to this podcast may know, myself and my background, I was an active fix and flipper for a number of years, and I really wanted to dive into Drew's background specifically on the active single family real estate business, which I don't quite frankly know a lot about. So I'm really looking forward to this episode. Drew, welcome to the show again.
Jeremy, pleasure to be on the show and looking forward to talking more about real estate today.
Sounds good. So how are things on the hockey rink tonight? I know you had ice time tonight, which is hard to believe in the middle of July.
It is. I know that's a commonality we both share. Both of our sons play ice hockey. So yes, I was only at the ice hockey rink twice in the middle of July today. So it sure beats the heat when my temperature on my car said 108 in Charlotte, North Carolina today when I was in the parking lot. So it is a welcome, refreshing breeze to walk in the rink at times.
That's great. Well, we only hit 92 degrees here in Minnesota, but we've had a relatively nice, mild summer so far. So we finally, the heat has finally set in here in the Midwest. So I'm going to dive right into it if you don't mind.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd really like to know, and again, I'm sorry, I don't know this. I probably should have asked you this already before. But tell me a little bit more about, what you've had historically going on in the single family, home ownership rental business. How many properties have you owned historically? What locations have they primarily been in? Are these all single family homes? Is there a traditional number of beds, baths that you typically like to own? Just let our listeners know a little bit more about what you're up to.
Yeah, for sure. I think it helps to give a little bit of color and I guess a little bit of background for where I started to tell you kind of how I got to where I am today. I actually started in real estate at age 19. So from a very young age, I grew up just loving Monopoly. And then that's what I kind of tell everyone. And what's ironic is literally last week, I started teaching my kids how to play Monopoly. So probably a little late in life, but they're 11 and 13. And I'm teaching them, and it's all over the kitchen table. I mean, the kitchen table's gone for the next 30 days. I can just promise you that, right? So, and I'm balancing I really want to win, and I know which properties I want to collect on the board, right? I want like the whole row of 10 in a row versus like trying to teach them, strategery of how to play the game. So I love Monopoly at a young age, and I think that really set the journey, but. When I went to college, I went to a small college up in Pennsylvania where I met my beautiful wife. When I went there, I knew I wanted to study business. I had no idea what it would be, but I just knew business was in the cards. And then after my first semester, I got introduced to a real estate course. And after I did that, I'm like, man, I'm hooked. There's something about this that I really like. And at the time, real estate to me meant houses. It meant single family houses. I had no idea what, you and I would do one day. But what I loved about it is every property is unique. Like everything is different. It's not the same anywhere. You can never say it's the same. Lot changes, the house changes. So from a young age, when someone would say, why are you in real estate? I mean, my response would be, I like houses. Like it would be really as simplistic as that. And I went to one of the schools at the time in Pennsylvania that had a real estate major. So very, very few schools had a real estate major back in the 90s. Okay. So now it's a lot more common. So I took a lot of real estate classes, obviously, business degrees, marketing management, and I did a minor in real estate, believe it or not. So after 4.5 years of college, I figured that was kind of enough. I probably shouldn't be there any longer for 2.5 majors, but love that. But what got me hooked on real estate is I had internships at a very young age. And when I say I started in real estate at age 19, I got my first internship after my sophomore year, which is very rare. And it led me to leasing apartments in Fairfax, Virginia. It was an amazing company. It's called Avalon Bay. And they paid me a monthly stipend and gave me free room and not food, but free room, a free apartment, completely furnished. It was awesome. It was the best internship ever. I didn't want to leave. That was an amazing job for a 19-year-old. And then,
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and it was great. And then they paid me bonuses on every time I leased an apartment. It was amazing. It was great. So that was really cool. That really set the hooks on how I loved real estate. Did a sales internship after my junior year, and then after I'll call it my first senior lap. Then I did an internship in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I reside today, and my family. And that internship was with a company called Ryan Homes, and it's a new construction home builder, which is very big and dominant on the East Coast. And when I was interviewing for the internship at college, they said, there's not any internships, and I'm from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area. There's no internships here in Pittsburgh, but there's an opportunity for you to go to Cleveland, Ohio, or Charlotte, North Carolina. I go, Charlotte.
That was an easy decision.
I'm like, Charlotte for the summer? Yes, this is great. You're telling me I can drive to the beach in 2.5 hours? This is awesome. So did a summer internship, in Charlotte. Man, what a great experience, because I was doing marketing. I was creating newspaper ads that got published in the paper, and I thought that was pretty cool. I had an amazing opportunity learning sales, and I had an amazing opportunity. They put me in the construction field for a week or two and learn how to build houses and how to do construction management. So I got exposed to all elements. And that was amazing is at the end of the internship, they brought me in and said, "Hey, Drew, we really enjoyed having you here. We would like to give you a job offer before your last semester of college. I mean, this is like a dream." And they said, "But you have to decide if you want to go into construction or sales." And believe it or not, I wasn't sure. I'm like, man, this is a really hard decision, because I saw the salespeople, they were doing really, really well, financially. But then I saw the construction team, and then just trust me, they worked hard for construction management, but man, I got to be outside all day. I mean, it was a complete different. I ended up doing sales. I think it was a great decision, just based on my personality and based on me, not based on what I think is better, but you got to put the right person in the right seat, I believe, in life. And thankfully I chose the right seat, and they supported that, and came to Charlotte, North Carolina after I graduated my last semester. And I went into new construction sales, an amazing training program. I trained for about a year doing that, just, right out of college, and then went into sales. And I'll tell you, so 22-year-old, and you go to a all commission only job, it is really nerve-wracking. It is really nerve-wracking, and engaged at the time to my college sweetheart. But if you want to talk about motivation, and Jeremy, I know you're in high-end sales, and we can talk about that as well. If you want to talk about motivation where you have no safety net of a salary and you put someone on commission, oh my gosh, you're going to figure out how to sell a house really fast, right?
It's feast or famine. Yep.
Total feast or famine. And it's motivating. And I didn't have a safety net. And I grew up at well, very low income, I'll call it, family, and there was no safety net to go back. So I had to make it work. So did a great job. And within 3 years, I was the top sales rep in all of the Carolinas. And I was the second, I still have a little chip on my shoulder, second highest sales rep in the entire company by age 25. So
wow.
it was great. I'll tell you, talk about working 7 days a week, and I did it out of desire, not out of being mandated to. And every once in a while I have an opportunity and I go speak at a local high school. They have an entrepreneurship class, and I love doing it. I love giving back, and I'm really in education. At the end of the day, whether it's real estate or, my other career, it's all about education. And I love giving back and doing that. But the common question that always comes up, Jeremy, is, they say, how were you so successful? Or what did you do in life to get there? Like, how were you, I hate to say number two, or number one in the Carolinas sounds a lot better than number two in the company, or whatever I do now. And I'll tell you, it's the exact same answer I would give 20 years ago that I'll give today. And my answer is, and I tell my kids this, if you work 10 hours more than anybody else, the average in your industry, you'll become an expert in your industry faster than anyone else. And if you want to become an expert in what you do, work 10 hours more per week. And that adds up. And I'm pretty sure there's, stats or quotes out there, once you hit 1,000 or 10,000 hours, whatever it is in your industry, you are actually considered an expert in your field. So I wanted to be an expert in my field as fast as I could.
Yeah. And certainly there's an element of quality versus quantity involved in the amount of time that you allocate more towards the thing than somebody else. But yeah, good point.
Yeah. So that was great. I very much enjoyed that job. I did that for 7 years at a very, very high level from new construction sales. And in the company that I worked for, the amazing thing that it taught me was it mandated me to sell off of a blueprint. So if you want to sell a house, it's not something that's there. Let's go tour it. It's bright and shiny. I had to sell the concept, the idea, the image that let's go paint the picture. These trees are going to go away. These are the ones that are going to stay. And this is the house. And that was, you need a lot of creativity very, very quickly to be able to put into that type of situation as a young 20-year-old.
Yeah. Not everybody can do that. You were really selling a vision, right?
100%. Yeah. You got to sell a vision. And I'll tell you, I loved it. I loved it. It was great. And it just further deepened my love of real estate even more. And it helped catapult me to doing other things. And with the, I was a sales rep then from 2002 to 2009. So I saw a massive spike in 2005. So you want to talk about being the peak of your industry on a good year. I hit the bell curve on the exact right time. So you can talk about luck all you want. Like one of the amazing, podcasts I listen to, he talks podcast as an entrepreneur. I'll drop another one. How I Built This is a great entrepreneur podcast, and the gentleman that runs it always says, how much luck and versus hard work is involved. And man, timing is all about luck. So you just have to take advantage of when opportunities are presented to you, and I made sure I did. But at the same time, I also experienced the crash in 2008, and I still held in on that. So. That I saw a very high and a very low in a very short period of time. And I'm very lucky that the finances that I was able to achieve at a high level, man, I stashed them away. I'm a saver, not a spender in life. And that catapulted us to be able to then buy our first rental property, which was amazing. It then afforded me the ability to open up a business, which has done extremely well and got me to the next level, I'll call it, in kind of our life chapter and our life cycle. And from there, I've continued to add real estate. So I've never gone away from it.
Yeah. So you really were able to get into the business of acquiring single family homes. One part of it was because you had a tremendous amount of experience. I mean, at this point, if you really got into the real estate, game when you were 19, you had to have learned a lot about real estate in general. Second to that, you quickly became a high performing sales professional, catapulted your way to the top, of the roster, so to speak, which enabled you to have enough discretionary cash on the sideline, so to speak, to be able to deploy into single family real estate assets. Am I kind of breaking that down accurately?
Yeah, you're breaking it down into real estate. I never went into the single family specific, so I'll kind of unpack that a little bit more. In my 20s and my 30s, I never targeted a single asset class in real estate. It just kind of happened organically. And I'll tell you successes, and I also tell you failures, because quite honestly, I think myself and a lot of people, I learn from failures more than I do successes. So I'm about to, if you want a climax of the story, I'm going to tell you a failure of something I should have not done.
That's what everybody listening to this podcast, they tune in 3 times a week so they can hear us talk about times where we've failed miserably. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I think it's good. At the time, I didn't think it was good. So the first rental property, it was pretty low hanging fruit. So my then wife and I, we owned a townhome. That was our very first home together. We lived there for 3 years. And then when we built, and I've been the GC, the general contractor, and built 2 single family homes for us now. Because I had enough experience, I guess, enough to be dangerous, they call it. We moved out of our townhouse and we turned that into a rental property. Great decision. It has 3x'd in value from when we bought it, and I still own it today.
How many units? How many units is that? Was that townhome?
That is a single townhome, so single occupant townhome. Well, one door. We'll call doors. Right now I own 7 doors as rental properties, and then lots of real estate syndications, which is hundreds of doors, thousands of doors. So that was a townhome, 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome. That was great. Had that ability to do that from somewhere we already lived. And then moved into our primary residence. When we moved into our primary residence, then I was looking for a second rental. I was doing so well. Then the second rental property we purchased was a duplex. So own a duplex, still own that duplex. I will absolutely be selling that duplex in the next 12 months. There is no doubt about that. We can have a whole nother podcast about how I absolutely despise, fixing toilets, tenants, and termite problems like the TTT. I'm over that now in my 40s.
So are you not looking? I mean, you have 7 doors now, right? And you're looking to get rid of the duplex, maybe some of the other properties. Why have you chosen, and maybe you have or you have not, why have you not chosen to scale that business beyond 7 units? Or are you at a point now where you've kind of reached all you can handle, so to speak, on the active real estate side, and maybe looking to slowly unwind that?
Yeah, it comes down to one word: time. It's time. In my not that I'm father time, but in my youth, in my 20s and 30s, man, 24/7, and I still work 24/7, but my time is much more valuable now in my 40s with my career, my work, my children, right? I want to be involved in my children's lives. I don't need to be going to unclog someone's toilet. Like I don't. Like I don't, and even if I have a property management company, which I don't, again, there's a cost associated with it. There's a reason why I don't. I still don't want the phone call at midnight. And I've had too many of those where even if it's not my problem, just having the ability to have good customer service and answering the phone from a good paying tenant, I still got to pick up the phone at midnight, and I still got to talk them through how to solve the problem themselves. So it comes down to time. That's really what it is. So yeah. I have 3 residential rental doors. I have 4 commercial rentals. Okay. I will not be owning I will not be an active real estate owner anymore. So the commercial side, that'll probably stay put. I must admit that's a pretty well-oiled machine. I will 1,000% be scaling back my residential doors in the immediate future.
Let's talk about, I know that's kind of your strategy longer term, is to maybe kind of go from, actively owning real estate to passively owning real estate. I've personally been on the active side, have moved, to the passive side as well. But some of the listeners may be in their 20s, they may be in their 30s. They might, time might not be as big of a factor, for them. And they may be looking for that side hustle, right? They may know that they've got some evenings open to swing some hammers. They've got some weekends open to deal with, as you say, the tenants in the trash. What were some of those, what was your thought process during that time, or your strategy in acquiring those assets? Were you getting loans on those properties? Were you coming to the table with cash on the sidelines? I mean, what did those, what do those debt terms look like traditionally on those assets that you've purchased?
Yeah, that's a great question. The original one, that was a primary residence. So we got very fortunate that as you move out of it, we did not refinance. We kept that initial primary residence loan terms, and that has been the case since. I knew enough about real estate and mortgages at the time that before we left, oh my gosh, and I think we've owned this property for 22 years. I don't know, it's been a long time. I was very aggressive in the type of mortgage we did, and I did a 1-year ARM, okay, which it was actually based off a LIBOR rate, which is I might get the terminology wrong, it's been a little while, London Index Bank Offer Rate.
They call it the SOFR rate now. I don't know why they decided to make that change, but 1-year ARM's probably not a good idea in today's environment.
Not now. At the time, that was, I knew enough to be dangerous, and I knew how much principal I had on the property. That was a very smart bet. I would never encourage someone to do that ever. So audience members, please do not write that down as a strategy that you should do. I knew enough to be dangerous to be able to pull that off. So that one worked out well for me. Second one, I paid cash. I mean, it was very inexpensive. It was, under 6 figures. So that was a good find in a down market. I bought that during the Great Recession.
Yeah,
so
the global financial crisis back in maybe 07, 08, 09, something like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that right around 2010, maybe. So okay. I'll tell you, I made a good purchase and a bad purchase during that recession, global financial crisis. And this was the climax I was alluding to earlier. That was a good purchase. The bad purchase was buying spec land. That was a very bad purchase in 2007. So that one was not good, and I had to hold on that for quite some time to be able to make a wash on that one.
Sure. Well, let's talk about just curious on any types of renovations or any types of what they call value add. Were these assets that you acquired that needed some work before they were tenant ready?
Yeah, they did. I mean, especially the duplex. The duplex is definitely in a kind of a, I don't know, B-, C+ area. I'll call it the Charlotte metro area. Great population density, just not necessarily in the higher incomes, I'll call it suburb area. But it is on my side of town within relative, distance, 15, 20 minutes. So that's somewhat close. It's the next, I'll call it county over from where I live. But yeah, I mean, it's dated. It's probably it's a duplex that was built in the 1940s. Definitely needed some love. I absolutely put in sweat equity and completely gutted and changed the kitchens myself and a buddy, and flipped that thing in a week. The wiring was so old, Jeremy. Like they had the old fuse box where you twist and screw in like the round fuse. I'm like, as soon as I walked in, I go, oh, this ain't gonna pass code. There's no way. So, I had to hire and I knew that going into it. I did my due diligence. Yeah. So I had to hire an electrician and, run all new wiring and, put in a fuse box, a breaker box. So it did that, it was good. I will tell you, that absolutely will be the next asset that I sell. There's zero doubt about it. So I can sell one asset and get rid of, 2 phone calls a month, or more. That's a no-brainer for me.
So next question for you, Drew, is were there any steps as you kind of got into the single family home ownership rental business? Were there any steps that maybe you kind of learned along the way or you implemented up front to try to mitigate any potential problems or losses?
Ooh, yeah, good question. One of my go-to sayings is, "You don't know what you don't know," right? So it's lesson learned, for probably both you and I, because I know you have done a lot of rentals and homes and flipping yourself. So I mean, I could probably ask you the exact same question. So what did I learn along the way? The one thing, I'll come back to the whole word education. One thing I wish I would have learned about, way longer than I even called it a year ago, is this whole world of real estate passive investing. No idea this existed. I mean, I am far from, I'll call it, an expert in my field, but I've been in real estate for 25 years, and I've had a broker license for 23 years, and I have a broker in charge license. I feel like I'm a little bit above the bell curve on the real estate field, and I've never heard of the term passive real estate investing until last year. Don't know why that didn't happen. So why I say the word education is, I wish I would have just taken a pause. For anyone that's listening, take 30 days, pause before you buy a property. Even if 20s, 30s, I don't care how old you are. If you think you want to be a landlord, great. But learn what the other options and alternatives are, because you could have the ability to still make financial income for your family and never have a phone call from a tenant and never touch a toilet your entire life. This is a no-brainer to me. So that's where all of my attention and conviction is now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's kind of what you just said is kind of that mic drop moment. It was for me when I first got involved on the passive side of real estate ownership versus doing it actively. But, one thing that I just want to kind of circle back to that you originally started with, which kind of bleeds into this discussion of, active versus passive investing. And that is the game Monopoly that you brought up that you recently taught your children. And one thing that I've tried to explain to my kids is, the way of life in investing works a lot like that game of Monopoly. Okay. You can work really hard and you can grind it out, whether that's your day job or whether that's active, ownership in a single family home where you're the landlord. You can work really hard for that $200 every time you go around the board, right?
That's right.
And you can take your chance with the chance card or potentially end up in jail, those types of things. Or as you make your way around that board, you can start to acquire real estate that generates cash flow, right? And so you're not so dependent upon, actively grinding it out in whatever that side hustle is that you have, but rather you can create for yourself, multiple sources of cash flow that you are really largely not doing anything to earn other than researching the opportunity before you make that decision to get involved. So I'm just curious, now that you've been on the passive side of real estate investing, and you've also been on the active side with your single family home rentals, from a returns perspective, have they been relatively comparable, or are you not quite at that point yet in your passive real estate and journey to really know?
Good question. And the answer is, it really depends, right? I mean, the assets that I have a mortgage on, it's a match for my passive investing versus the ones that I have a mortgage note on. Returns are the same. You can't really compare something that I'm paying cash for. So that's hard. I know I can put it through a metric and an evaluation to figure out exactly, what that would be if I would have a loan or a note on it. But if for an apples to apples comparison on the passive side, it's even, but the stress level is less. It's because I don't have to personally guarantee a loan. Like that in itself is, it gives me, rest and assurance at night.
So passive investing is considerably more risk adjusted because you're not the guarantor on the loan, right? And you would say that perhaps maybe the return profile is similar. You've got organic appreciation, you've got forced appreciation. You're buying down perhaps the debt. You're obviously doing some, depreciation through maybe a cost segregation study or something like that. So you've got some tax benefits involved there. But the big aha moment is your time. You don't have to spend your time managing the actual execution, of that particular asset.
That's right. Do I want to play Monopoly with my kids 1 hour a night, or do I want to go, help a tenant out in a crisis or in need? Or screen tenants. Let's be honest. Let's take the maintenance. Let's say I just bought a brand new asset, right? Let's take that out of the equation. When they move out every year, or maybe they move out over 2 years, screening a tenant, like you can do the background checks, you can do all that. I haven't got it right in 15 years. Like every time I got this down pat, do the background check, I'll talk to them, I'll do a reference check, talk to the employer. I'm still wrong. Like that's a frustrating feeling, because you're not getting rent for about a month. Even if I flip the place crazy fast, I'm still out of rent for 2 weeks. And now I'm wishing and hoping and praying that this tenant's the right one that I picked.
Yeah. Touche. Well, Drew, I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for jumping in. And for those that don't know, Drew is also a co-host with me here on the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast. So definitely continue to listen to future episodes where Drew will be hosting some additional guests. Our goal is obviously to provide as much value to you as possible. We try to keep these episodes as short as possible. I thought this particular episode, it would be great to unpack Drew's background in real estate and how he came to this point along his real estate investing journey. So Drew, before we exit, how can our listeners get in touch with you to learn more?
Yeah, there's 2 different ways. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if you want to look me up that way, or just go to our website at startingpointcapital.com, and you can find my information to be able to reach out to me either by phone or by email, which is drew@startingpointcapital.com.
Drew, thank you for joining the show again today.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you next time.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point Podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point Podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.